SVC Media.
Welcome to the iGaming Daily Podcast, analysing the news from the betting and gaming industry all over the globe, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market.
Legal ramifications continue to circle US sweepstakes casinos as the state of Connecticut has pressed over 1,000 criminal charges on the sweepstake brand of High Five Casino. The fallout sees the state gaming division suspend the parent license of High Five Games. In separate proceedings, High Five announced its sweepstake casino exit from all US licensed online casino states. Despite its costly reprimand, High Five maintains that it has been compliant as a game supplier, observing the fragmented rules of the US iGaming space. Today, iGaming Daily observes a new round of sweepstake reviews, fracturing relationships and dividing opinion in the US market. I'm Ted Menmuir, and joining me today we have Jessica Welman, the managing editor of SBC Media. How are you doing, Jess?
I'm good. I'm still getting used to that title. That I'm like, who are you talking about? I don't know about you and your new title, but I'm just like, who? Who's that?
I'm making my debut with Christian. So Christian Lee, a journalist for iGaming Expert. Christian, how are you doing?
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be with you today, Ted. I'm getting used to my new title at iGaming Expert as well, so it changes all around.
We all have new titles.
I think, yes, we're shifting all around, guys. And finally, the iGaming Daily podcast is brought to you by Optimove, the #1 marketing and CRM solution for the global gaming industry. Okay then, gang. Jess, let's get straight into this because your article is actually burning my LinkedIn. And let's start with the headline. Look, 1,000 criminal charges. That's a pretty definitive judgment by the Connecticut court on High Five Casino. Can you provide more details on the specific legal proceedings against High Five?
Yeah, so the group that actually levied the charges is the Connecticut Department of Consumer Protection, which is where gaming is housed in that state. Kind of varies state to state where gaming lives, and this is one of those unusual ones where it is consumer protection. They have law enforcement abilities, which isn't always the case with regulators. So the regulator said, we believe that this online social casino sweepstakes casino High Five Casino is in violation of state gaming laws. So we are levying these 1,065 charges against you, all for illegal gambling. They all carry a fine of up to $2,500 and a potential jail sentence of up to a year.
Okay.
It is a felony. So some serious charges, but again, it's just a charge. At this point, it is purely an allegation. It's not, nobody has pled guilty to anything, no court proceedings yet. So it's the very, very beginning of this.
So, Christian, I want you to do the maths.
About 2.5 million, right?
2.5 million, thank you.
I was like, math is tough for me at 8 o'clock in the morning, but I'm doing my best.
So, Jess, thanks for that background. So, what laws have been broken and what are the perceived kind of alleged violations of High Five in its services in the state of Connecticut?
So this is the part that actually, to me, is the most interesting. So they're saying that in terms of statute, that the only legal online casinos in Connecticut are those licensed and regulated by the state, of which there are two, FanDuel and DraftKings, which work with the Mashantucket Pequot. I've gone to Foxwoods too many times, and I've memorized that tribal name, by the way. I'm a little proud of myself. And Mohegan Sun. So they're saying that because it's not a licensed casino through the state, even though this sweeps element is present and the argument legally for sweeps is that it's a sweeps contest and not a real money casino, they disagree with that assessment and believe that they are in violation of the online gambling statute. What's interesting to add to this is there's currently a bill to rephrase this statute to make it more clear that sweepstakes are included in it. So my question kind of is, if the law is so murky that you currently have a bill to make it less murky, how good a legal footing is DCP on this to begin with?
That's interesting. That really is. And I'll take you back on that because, I mean, coming up from European eyes, it's how are the competitive terms in individual states set for casino? Can competition argue that that structure is restricted, whereby a state has only mandated that it can allow 2 licenses because they've got a partnership with the tribe. Isn't that restrictive?
I mean, there are states where there's only one, it's just dependent on, it's also like, you don't want to futz around with tribal compacts. The last thing you want to do is allege that those are unfair, and gaming in Connecticut has historically been done through the tribes. So that structure kind of comes into effect. I think, in terms of like state by state, where some of this is confusing too, is that in every state, gambling is defined differently. Mm-hmm. Christian, when he was on the Americas team, briefly kind of learned this, that, Washington, for example, where High Five recently had to settle a class action lawsuit, or not settle, but rather been told to pay out like $25 million in a class action lawsuit about its social casino, its sweeps casino. That's a state where it's just like an extremely prohibitive definition, and it's very explicit, like anything online is bad. But you can't take that and then extrapolate it to other states. You know what I mean?
Okay, so as stands, what is the legal status of sweepstakes in Connecticut?
Whew, that's a good. I don't think anyone fully knows the answer to that question. Christian, do you want to take a stab at this one?
No, I'm glad you spoke up first, because as you sort of said before about the fact that they have had to introduce a new bill to sort of include sweepstakes operators within the people that are banned from the state. There is this sort of grey area in terms of can sweepstake operators operate in the state or not. I think it is interesting that VGW, they were sent a cease and desist letter by the DCP last year and subsequently shuttered its operations in Connecticut. Interesting that last year the DCP sent a cease and desist letter to VGW and they subsequently shut their operations in Connecticut, which shows that they do take a dim view on the operator, but at the same time, there's no definitive law one way or the other in terms of the can operate.
It's worth pointing out that most all of the major sweepstakes sites have pulled out of the 6 states that do have regulated and licensed online casino gaming, which is Connecticut, West Virginia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware.
Mm-hmm. Jess, I want to kind of provide your on-the-ground perspective. Now, you covered the US casino sector for years, and one of the fundamental questions is there a clear distinction between the sweepstake offering and the online casino offering, and shouldn't that be what leads state judgments?
Oh, Ted, that would make sense. Why would we do that? You can go back and listen to an episode we did about sweeps with an attorney kind of explaining it's the same games and same suppliers. Like High Five, it's portfolio that it offers to FanDuel and DraftKings, which have had to pull those games, but the mechanism for depositing and withdrawing is the differentiator where, in theory, you can just play for free on this site. You can play using your gold coins the same way you would Slotomania or any other kind of free online casino. But when you buy these coins, if you want more, like I think, you know what, I'm saying this to Ted, realizing he's probably not the person who's like, sometimes on Candy Crush, I just want fresh levels and I'm willing to pay for it.
No.
But this doesn't seem like your
okay, but then isn't that a point of reference that this isn't something new, that we had social gaming, I think a decade ago.
That's the problem. If you look at all of these sweeps bills, Christian, I'll let you talk a little bit in a second about where we've been seeing sweeps bills. The hardest part of the bills that we've been seeing this year that are trying to kind of tackle and say you can't do sweeps anymore, the hardest problem is defining them in a way that doesn't accidentally get rid of Candy Crush and make that illegal, because at the heart, these games are social games, they're freemium games, and they're just kind of taking it to an extreme level in terms of this second dual currency. But in Maryland, for example, their definition, when they were doing testimony on the bill, Jeff Ifrah was speaking on behalf of the sweeps promotional group and noted that like a Starbucks game that he likes to play would be rendered illegal if by the way that they're defining it. Christian, you've covered some of these too. What have you seen in terms of the variety of definitions?
Yeah, there's a lot of different definitions. I think the Social and Promotional Gaming Association, which essentially a body that represents a lot of different sweepstakes operators. One thing they noted is the worry that sort of new regulation that redefines sweepstakes will push out legitimate social sweepstakes games like the Candy Crush and the ones you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that they noted that I think in Florida said it could have a significant impact on Florida's economy if these legitimate sweepstakes aren't able to operate. So it's definitely something that needs to be considered by regulators and get that definition that sort of strikes a balance between the two.
SBC Leaders connects the gambling industry's top-tier operators and associations to share the best ideas, collaborate on solving the biggest issues, and push innovation throughout the betting and gaming industry. If you're an operator and want to join the discussion, visit sbcleaders.com for more information.
And again, isn't there another kind of legal precedent, as in if we revert back to PASPA in 2018 with DFS versus online sportsbook? I mean, can't they take anything from that?
It's an entirely different kind of argument. That's fundamentally that it's a game of skill, is DFS.
But I'm talking about they've gone through this whole kind of what is black, what is white, and what is grey in the US, and can't they just reapply that to a different circumstance, let's say?
I think there are people in the industry that are willing to push for that. I think the U.S. gaming industry in particular, I think this is probably truthful of gambling everywhere, though, they're extremely protectionist and they're extremely isolationist. And so the idea of creating a system where you get to let other people in when it's been your turf for a while is something people aren't going to be open to. Recall, they did that with DFS, and now who are the number 1 and 2 operators in the United States? The DFS companies. So I think they're a little snake bit on that front. I think the other problem, too, is like the product is like DFS, the product's fundamentally different. For casino and sweepstakes casinos, the product's fundamentally the same. It's just the payment mechanism that's different. So the thing is if you tried to carve out sweeps and then you say, okay, well, maybe you have to pay fewer taxes or maybe you have to pay lower licensing fees, the question then becomes, well, why would anyone be a regulated online casino? I can go be in basically every state. I can pay less, blah, blah, blah. So this is one of those issues. We've spoken about this on a previous episode. It's kind of impossible to find a compromise.
So, Christine, in your reporting, I mean, how much of a point of fracture is sweeps becoming in kind of the all-round legislation of iGaming as a discipline in the States? So is this kind of slowing down the application of more states going for online casino legislation?
Yeah, I think that regulators are certainly taking notice of sweepstakes and realising that with the growth of the sector, they now need to make a decision on what they're going to do with it. Are they going to sort of welcome it as part of their regulatory framework, or are they going to prohibit it? We've seen sort of New Jersey, Maryland, Mississippi, among others. Mm-hmm. They're all sort of considering bills at the moment that would prohibit sweepstakes. There's been a notable shift in New Jersey because previously they thought about sort of bringing it in and including it within the framework, but now they shifted and they also want to prohibit it as well. In terms of if it's slowing down sort of the introduction of new states to iGaming, I'm not sure if that is the case because it seems like it's something that obviously sweepstakes and iGaming are similar in many ways, but I think if more states want to bring in iGaming, sweepstakes wouldn't be the thing that is slowing that down.
Okay.
Yeah, to just clarify really fast, the regulators aren't the ones making the decision. It's lawmakers that have to make these decisions, and then the regulators enforce it. So it's currently sitting with state legislatures right now. If anything, watching hearings, I'm hearing sweeps as a motivation to hurry up and regulate because these sites exist and we need to crack down on them and so on and so forth. We're not getting any online casino states this year for reasons far beyond sweeps.
And in general, I mean, from your reporting and being out there in the States, I mean, do you think the legislators are pro-sweeps, as in they accept that it's different, that it's a different form of gambling and would require its own legislation, or are they anti?
I've yet to hear a lawmaker be pro-sweeps. If you look at the votes, we've seen measures pass the legislature in Maryland and in Mississippi, and in both of those instances, with pretty overwhelming votes in favor. I think a lot of these states, there's just a lot to do and not a lot of interest in like taking up these bills in certain instances. And then in Mississippi, it might get derailed because sports betting language got tacked onto it that's going to make or break the bill. Lawmakers, I mean, they seem to not really, they don't process the difference. A lot of the lawmakers are speaking and conflating, and in part because some of these bills kind of conflate them too, the black market and offshores and sweeps, which is not exactly the most thoughtful way to group things together.
Are these companies, though, I mean, are they doing fundamentally anything illegal? Like, are they paying, do they pay their taxes?
Most, I can't say there are 90 bajillion sweepstakes sites.
But the bigger ones, I mean, the ones that are more present. And one thing I saw about Hi-Fi is that its CEO, you know, got a LinkedIn profile, you can find him, you know, you can email him. He has a very active role in his business. I mean, clearly he wants it to, you know, he has some scrutiny over it. So I'm saying, like, what is that kind of black market element of sweeps?
I mean, I think the difference is, like, sweeps, the reputable sweep sites, the ones you see in SPGA, VGW, all of them pay sales tax on these purchases, on these coins. All of them issue tax forms on gambling winnings to appropriate people. They have a certain amount of KYC that you would see in fantasy or games of skill. They have, you know, reputable payment processors. I think what's really kind of coming to bear in the past month is that the suppliers for this industry are coming under fire. Some of these bills are explicitly saying that these suppliers are going to be breaking the law if they're complicit with sweeps. And it's the same suppliers as gaming. It's the same payment processors, same geolocation, same game studios, with a couple of exceptions, and same affiliates. Like, if you are a US affiliate and you find out that you're no longer allowed to, like, promote sweepstakes in New York, which is what the bill is suggesting, that's a huge chunk of your revenue that's going to be taken away.
So, looking at all these kind of divisions, and do you think that moving forward, if you're a supplier, if you're an advertiser, you've really got to make a choice between either, you know, whether I can supply sweepstakes or not? Is that just going to be down to the individual business? Christian?
Yeah, I think so. It's certainly a case of them making that decision whether they do sort of draw a line in the sand and decide to move away from supplying to the sweepstakes markets to fall more in line with regulators. If this legislation does come in where they come under fire from lawmakers because they are supplying sweeps, that then leaves them sort of having to make that decision and decide if it's worth the risk. And obviously that depends on the amount of money sweeps brings into them, whether they're willing to take on that risk to carry on supplying the market.
Yeah, I think it's going to be kind of a state-by-state thing, as we've seen with these cease and desists. Yeah, when Connecticut sends you a cease and desist, you just leave. Because how many people are... I mean, they established 1,100 people in Connecticut play on High Five. They're fine losing 1,100 customers. When California sends you a cease and desist, when Texas sends you a cease and desist, I think this is when you potentially see sites, suppliers, etc., push back. If one of those states were to pass a bill, you would see, like this New York one, if it actually gains traction, which it doesn't seem like it's going to, you'll see pushback there, because that's huge amounts of money for these people. And up until now, the states that they've been asked to leave are largely states that they're just like, listen, we can still make plenty of money without them.
I mean, the other thing is, like, the ramifications are quite clear. I mean, 25 million is no laughing matter.
I mean, that's if they haven't been told that they are guilty of that yet.
Yeah, okay.
There's a chance they pay nothing.
Oh, or okay. So, Jess, begin to end the podcast. And how are you covering sweeps developments, and what is kind of your kind of upcoming view on kind of its proceedings, the debate and the kind of deliberations going on?
I mean, it's everywhere. Part of it is that we're taking a pretty comprehensive view of it. There's legislation, certainly, but there's also a lot of litigation. And so far, the litigation has kind of gone in favor of sweepstakes sites, with the exception of this High Five class action. But another High Five suit was voluntarily dismissed, one that claimed that Google and Apple were complicit in racketeering, like levied what are called RICO charges here, which is what you use on mobsters. And that was voluntarily dismissed by the plaintiff. So the real thing with sweeps is there's never going to be some definitive action that makes it nationwide change. It's going to be state by state by state by state by state. And so we try our best to stay on top of who's sending cease and desist letters, who's leaving, what the litigation is, what the legislation is. But it's a big game of whack-a-mole.
And Christian, take us out. I mean, what would you tell kind of European audiences or international audiences kind of following sweeps this year, who might not be like day-to-day engaged with the narrative?
Yeah, as Jess mentioned, it is state by state. So for anyone from a European perspective looking into it, be ready to get your atlas out to check where the different states are, and be ready to have sort of maybe even get a spreadsheet going to see where all the different states are at, because it is such a fragmented situation. From a European perspective, the logical way would be to think, well, why can't the government just say one way or another? But that's just not how it works. Everything is on the state by state level. So it's definitely a case of one, wait and see, and two, be prepared to do a lot of reading to work for all the different bills that are in play at the moment.
If I can add one other thing, I think internationally there's potential ramifications for what happens here in Connecticut, because their license did get suspended. And the gaming group the regulators did believe them to be in violation of the terms of their license. And many jurisdictions, I believe European included, if you're found to be in violation in one jurisdiction, it can threaten your suitability in another jurisdiction. So I think for High Five, there's potential for this. I did say there's a chance they pay nothing. Yeah. There's a chance they lose licenses elsewhere because they were found to be in violation here.
I think it could also maybe spook operators outside the US who do work with High Five, in terms of, if they see they're under the microscope in the US, would they reconsider that partnership just to avoid any potential turmoil down the road?
Well, guys, on that bombshell, we're going to end the podcast.
Happy
Jessica. Jessica and Christian, thanks so much. And thank you to our audiences. Stay tuned.
Thank you for listening to today's iGaming Daily Podcast, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market. If you want to find out more about some of the subjects raised today, feel free to explore any of the sites in the SBC News Network, or check out the latest edition of the SBC Leaders magazine. Happy reading.